In Seattle, it's known as Lytton Cottage. The Lytton family built the cottage in 1888. Originally, it had been sited on 150 acres of land as a small farm with incredible views of Lake Washington. The family had made a success of the farm until Thanksgiving Day, 1899. Sometime during that night, they were all murdered by a transient named Jacob Bird. Bird used a double-edged axe taken from the family's woodshed to kill and dismember Shari, Thomas, their two children, Jenny, Tom Jr., and Shari's father, Henry Morgan. He also killed their dog, Butch, and all the family's livestock. He stacked the family's bloody bodies like wood in one of the bedrooms in the house. Then he took a bath, put on some of Thomas' clothes, and made himself breakfast. At some point, he fell asleep. He was still asleep in the kitchen when he was captured by the sheriff's patrol. On the wall, where the bodies had been found, Bird had written in his victim's blood, "No home for children." This is Audio Stories with J.B. Simien, and this is a story about the paranormal nature of a particular dwelling. It's titled, Lytton Cottage, No Home for Children. If you're hearing this story on YouTube, please subscribe to this channel and click the like symbol. If you're hearing this story on Audio Stories Podcast, please review it and like it in iTunes or in whatever podcast directory that you use. If you've already done all of that, I thank you very much. With your help, I'm hopeful that more people will discover these stories. Before his death by hanging on November 12, 1900, Jacob Bird bragged that he had killed more than 100 people throughout North America. He used his last words to place a curse on everyone involved in sending him to his death and stopping God's work. Strangely, within 3 years of his execution, the 5 men most associated with the case had all died by strangulation. Peter Duggins, the neighbor who discovered Bird sleeping, choked in his sleep. Deputy Sheriff Frank Hodge, the man who arrested Bird, choked in his sleep. Edward Josh, the prosecuting attorney, choked in his sleep. James Harrigan, the presiding judge, choked in his sleep. Thomas Sherman, Bird's defense attorney, whom Bird blamed for an ineffectual defense, choked in his sleep. It's a wonder that Bird didn't place a curse on God for allowing him to be caught. By 1900, an electric railway had been extended into the neighborhood from the city of Seattle. Over the next 20 years, the area changed from rural farmland to suburban neighborhood. Finally, it was annexed by the city of Seattle. The land became valuable as lots for housing. Except for the cottage and the lot upon which it sat, the remainder of the farm was sold by the owner. He kept the cottage to rent out, but soon it fell into disrepair. In those days, no tenant would live there for more than a few weeks at a time. The place went through long periods of no occupation. There were newspaper accounts from 1906 through 1918 of several vagrants found dead in the cottage by the county sheriff's patrol. Their deaths were attributed to disease or accidents. The locals claimed it was the Lytton Cottage ghost. In September 1920, Maud Adams purchased the cottage at a county tax auction. She was a war widow with 2 small children. County records show that the cottage was remodeled to include adding electric power and indoor plumbing. The family lived a quiet life. However, the cottage retained a reputation for unusual happenings with the neighbors. This is one of the neighborhood stories. There are more. A young girl was visiting Cordelia Adams, the daughter of Maud Adams. They were playing in Cordelia's room when they heard Maud call to them from the kitchen for help. As the girls were moving to the kitchen, Maud came out of her room and into the hallway and stopped them. With her index finger pressed to her lips, Maud motioned for the girls to be quiet. Maud whispered to the girls, "I heard her too. It wasn't me." There were other stories of the house guests awakening to find spirits of deceased relatives standing by their beds, or worse, kneeling on top of their chest. Maud Adams passed away in the cottage in January 1963 of natural causes. Her children turned the house into a rental after they were unable to sell it and didn't choose to live there. The cottage was first rented to a family in the fall of 1963. The family moved out of the cottage before the end of the year. No explanations were given. That began a long, troubled period of short-term rentals until about 1983, when it was purchased by the Gannon family, primarily for the lake views of Lake Washington. The Gannons, Thomas and Emma, had a boy and a girl under age 10. One night, a few days after they moved into the cottage in July 1983, the children disappeared. They were in their rooms at bedtime. Their mother checked on them around 11:30 that night. Both children were asleep. When she went in to wake them at 7 the next morning, they were gone. In the son's bedroom was written a message on the wall: "No home for children." It appeared the children had been kidnapped. There was no break-in. The cottage doors were locked from the inside. The children's house keys were in their rooms. The cottage windows were also secured. None of the children's clothing was missing. They appeared to have departed while still in their pajamas, without shoes. Curious. During an interview with police detectives later that day, something very unusual occurred. Mr. and Mrs. Gannon, the police detectives, and other family members assembled heard the children's voices calling for help. Their calls were coming from the empty hallway that led to the bedrooms. However, when they answered the children's calls, it became apparent that the children couldn't hear them. The police searched the house again. No one could identify why they were hearing the children's voices in an empty hallway. The house was checked for hidden electronic devices. None were found. The police used wall-penetrating radar. No hidden rooms were discovered. In frustration, Mr. Gannon ripped open the walls in the hallway, the ceiling, and the floor. They found nothing. There's video from 1983 made by a local TV station that's on YouTube now. The children can be heard pleading for help, and you can see the frustration and the confusion on the adults. One of the police officers standing watch over the property that day had lived in the cottage 20 years earlier as a child. She told this strange story to the detectives. One afternoon, after school in November 1963, a few months after her family had moved into the cottage. She and her brother Sam were watching cartoons on TV in the living room. At some point during the TV program, the face of an expressionless circus clown filled the black and white TV screen. He looked like J.P. Patches. They could still hear the cartoons continuing in the background, but couldn't see them because the clown's face was blocking the program. They changed the channel several times, but the clown's face continued to fill the screen. They turned the TV off. The image of the clown still filled the TV screen. The children called for their mother, Pam. She turned the TV back on. She saw the clown. She changed its channel several times and then turned it off again. The clown's face was still there, silently watching them. Actually, he was watching the children. In those days, the TV sets were very heavy. Their mother asked them to help her turn the TV screen to face the wall because, they were creeped out. As they moved to do that, something changed on the TV screen. They could see the full body of the clown. He was no longer watching them. He was participating in an incident occurring on the TV screen. Pam, their mother, recognized the interior of her parents' home across town. The clown was in full circus regalia and walking through her parents' home. He opened the door of the master bedroom. Pam could see her mother, Viola, the children's grandmother, lying in the nude in the bathtub. She was unconscious and bleeding from her nose and scalp. The clown pointed to their grandmother, and a cartoon bubble caption with these words appeared above his head. "Hurry, she just slipped. Call an ambulance now." The family only had one car. It was with the father at work. So Pam called for the ambulance and also called for one of the grandmother's neighbors to help. Pam and the children continued to watch the God's eye view on the television as the neighbor entered the house and helped Viola. Then the ambulance arrived and took Viola to the hospital. The clown was in her parents' home the entire time. It appeared no one could see him. Pam was watching the neighbor dial her for Viola's home when the TV went blank. The clone was gone. There were two final messages left by the clown. First, the house is not safe for children. Second, you will know this is true when your president is killed. A few days after that, President Kennedy was killed in Dallas. In December, they moved out of the cottage. The police officer told the detectives at some risk to her career, "That thing built my mother's trust to save me and my brother. This house is haunted. The ghosts are tricksters. We can't help this family. We need the clown's help." Over the next 12 days, the Gannons listened as their children's pleas for help became weaker and weaker. Since the first day, the children had been pleading for water and food. Now they were constantly crying because they were dying of thirst and hunger. At the end of the 12th day, they could no longer be heard. They were not saved. The Gannons committed suicide in the cottage on the 14th day by gunshot. Their bodies were found together in the hallway. The official police report said it was a murder-suicide. A book written about the incident sometime later was not published because the bank interfered. They couldn't sell the property, so they threatened to sue the publisher and the author. Since 1984, the cottage has changed ownership several times. The main thing that attracts people is the view of Lake Washington. For short periods of time, the cottage is owner-occupied. Then it quickly reverts back to its troubled rental history. In 2013, Seattle police were called to assist the then current residents. They were in the living room watching a movie when the bodies of two emaciated and mummified children in pajamas suddenly appeared on the floor of the hallway. Out of nowhere. Written on the wall in one of the bedrooms was this message: "No home for children." That completes our story. I'm J.B. Simien. I hope that you've enjoyed it. Please recommend this podcast to your fans. Thank you, and take care.